Dr. Seuss, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all could be that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in the town. And he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're stuffing their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. And he knew tomorrow all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early, and they'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise, the one thing he hated, the noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on Who pudding and on real Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this whole Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? And he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do. And he laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked, what a great Grinchy trick. With this hat and this coat I look just like St. Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did this stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some empty old sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, get up! And the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark, quiet snow fills the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care when they arrived at the first little house on the square. This is the first stop, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed on the roof, empty bags in his fist. And he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, well then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, till he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where all the little Who stockings were lined in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn and plums. He stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he went to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, the Grinch even took the last can of Who ash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around quickly and he saw a small who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny who daughter who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" Well, you know, that old Grinch, he was so smart and quick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. I'm taking it back to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it back here." The fib fooled the child, and he patted her head. He got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when little Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. The last thing he took was the log for the fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On the walls there was nothing but hooks and some wire. And the last speck of food that was left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn. All the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with the presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was Grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. All the mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then all of the Who's will start crying, boo-hoo. "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." And he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But this sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes and he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. All the Who's down in Whoville, the tall and the small, were singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch stood with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. He puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he flew with his load through the bright morning light. He brought back the presents and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast.